Morning everybody, this is Anita from Brink studio over in Norfolk. It is sunny outside, it's quite warm actually, and I've even turned the heating off in the studio today, which is unbelievable for me. Anyway, today we're going to do jelly print painting part 2, or even jelly printing part 2. You're going to need a number of equipment, so you need some jelly plates. This is what they look like when they're out of their packaging. This one's a bit dirty, they're normally a lot cleaner than this. If you're not used to using a jelly plate, you might want to get some flexi cut, and you can clean that if you wish to. I'm not that bothered. I'm pressing my jelly plate on, so there it is, and that's the reason why you might want to use this. You can see through it and it'll help you with positioning your jelly plate, particularly on fabric if that's what you want to do. You may also want to have a piece of Perspex. I'm just about to use that, which is why that's on there. I like to roll my paint onto the Perspex rather than straight onto the jelly plate because I feel I have more control. And you are going to need a selection of brayers or rollers, however you want to call them. Recommend you have a clean one and a dirty one. So you're rolling the paint on with a dirty, and then you're rolling the back of your fabric or your paper with the clean. It's not vital that you have a clean one to roll it on because obviously it's the back, but lots of people prefer to keep the backs of their work clean as well as the fronts. You might want to have a selection of stamps of different types. It all depends on what you want to use. Quite like this particular stamp, it's one of my favourites. It's got some pretend writing and a few pictures and bits and pieces on it. You might want to have some stencils as well, and some leaves. Now these leaves, you can see the back has got quite a pronounced ridge and you can see all the veins, and that's what we're after when we do our printing. Paints, System 3 paints or any mid-range or good acrylic paints are ideal, and if you're going to be using them on fabric to make them permanent, you will want some fabric medium, and to mix that you mix 1 part fabric medium to 1 part acrylic paint, mix it up together. That will help the paint go into the fabric, and then when you iron it, it becomes permanent, so it can be washed. Hand washing is recommended depending on what you're doing. You might want to have a selection of sponges. You may have noticed I don't wear makeup, mainly because I can't be bothered with it, but makeup sponges are perfect for arts and crafts. Selection of paintbrushes and maybe some mixing pots and things like that as well. I recommend that you get some baby wipes. These are from one of the pound shops. They're perfect. The cheaper they are, the better they are for cleaning your brayers, for cleaning your jelly plates and for cleaning your stencils. You may also want to use some of these. These are rubbing plates that children have. They're ideal for what we need them for, so we can use them as stencils. And the other thing is, if you fancy going into whoever does a DIY shed and pinch their tools, they won't notice until you ask them to do a job. So it could be a long time, you know. If it's a man, they're on the 21-year rule, aren't they? So they'll never want them back, which is great for us. And also, if you have any of these, this is an embossing folder. As you can see, the design's embossed there. And you normally put your paper stock or cardstock through there. You fold it and you put it through a machine and it embosses it. Well, you can print that onto your jelly plate as well. So that gives you another way of making pattern. And because we're going to be layering things up today and using different layers, that will help you to get more layers on. The next video that I do will be the last one for jelly plate printing, and that one will be where we're going to be transferring images from magazines onto fabric and paper. So watch out for that one coming in the next week. So here is my jelly plate. Hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. I hope you can. So the first thing that I'm going to do is show you how to get a print from this leaf onto paper. It's the same principle with fabric. So I'm using normal copy paper here, and all I'm going to do is roll my paint onto my Gelli Plate. This I'm using a combination of copper and green. So although we're in spring, these are autumn colours, I know. And once I've got a nice even layer, I'm going to get my leaf, and we want vein side down. So I'm just going to put that one there. Try not to let it smudge, and that one there. Okay, that's all I'm going to do with that. Then I'm going to lay my paper over and press it down. And it's at this point that you want to stick it down, because you're making a hinge. So without it moving, just stick that down there. Underneath here I have a drop cloth, and the drop cloth has got a blanket underneath it, which makes it nice and spongy. Then with your clean brayer, just run over the top of that. This works with fabric as well, which I will demonstrate. So when you peel that back, do you see where the leaves are? Take the leaves off, and I'm not going to move this because I don't want to, but you will see the pattern. So at the moment there's no pattern there. Bring it back, rub it over, go over with your brayer again, peel it back. And there you see you have the pattern from your leaves. So it is a two-step process, but that's the way you need to use it to get your detail of your leaves. And you wouldn't have thought that you would get all that detail on here, which you have. So that's one way of getting precise layers so that you don't miss out on any detail on anything. We can do the same with fabric. So I'm going to get my fabric ready first. Just folding that back so that it's not on the Gelli Plate at the moment. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but I think this time I might add some green. Darker green into it, I think. Just a small amount. And I'm going to mix it with some fabric medium as well. So it's a teaspoon of each. And I'm mixing it on here on my piece of Perspex. You can pre-mix them into your bowls if you wish. I'm just doing this to speed things up a bit. Also, don't forget, when somebody tells you the rules are, they're there to be broken. Okay. So, I'm going to use the same leaves, quite like these leaves. You can use them more than once. Just pop them where you want. Make sure that your fingers are clean. Lay your fabric over. I'm going to have to move this over this way a bit because my fabric is a bit far away. So what I'm going to do is just get that on and stick that down. Clean brayer. Just roll it over. any kinks you've got in your fabric, because the outside pattern doesn't matter so much. It's more about getting the imprints. So run over it with your brayer, making sure you've got everything that you want. Peel it back, and you can see we have the same 2 prints without any detail. If at any point like this that you're worried that you might not get the print you want, just run over it again. And then, yet again, we're going to run over this to get our leaf prints coming through. And there you go, complete with detail. The next thing that we're going to do is look at how we can add more layers. So the first thing that I'm going to do is pop this flower on here and just run over it. I want to make sure that I get into all of the stencil ends, making sure it's covered properly. Going in with the brown and the bronze, I mean the green and the bronze, sorry. It does look a bit browny. Make sure all the points of your flowers or whichever stencil you're using are covered. And then I'm going in with the bubble wrap to get some texture onto it as well. Bubble side down, press it in, because it's all about the texture. You don't want a flat flower, if we can help it. Okay, I'll take that off. I'm going to take the stencil off as well. And because I want this a bit dry, I'm actually going to clean this stencil. So you get to do me doing a bit of cleaning as well, which is great fun. I'm cleaning it on the drop cloth because when I go over the finer parts, it will leave the imprint of a flower on here. Takes about 2 minutes for the paint to dry, which is why we tend to use acrylics on here, because you do get quite a good print as well. I don't always clean these, by the way. I quite often leave them because I think life's too short. However, I do realise that many people like to have their things clean. Okay, that's that done. Right, let's see how this is doing. Now, you may have seen on other channels that people are using hair dryers on these. You can use a hairdryer if it has a cold setting. Please don't use heat on it, because that's not going to achieve anything other than damage your jelly plate. So please don't. Just waft it a bit more, just to help it dry. what you want is for it to be dry to touch. Because once we've got it dry, we're going to go over it with another colour. The important thing is making sure that your design has dried. If it isn't dry, you're not going to get that print with the other colours showing through. And it will probably be much better if the print I actually did in black, because you may be able to see it better. However, who wants lots of black prints? You want colour. There we go. So there it is. It is on there. You can see. And it's dry to touch. So I'm going to go in with another colour. I'm thinking blue. So I do get a clean spoon for each colour, but I don't necessarily put it on a clean area. And I'm going to clean the brayer so that I don't end up with all the green mixing in with the blue. I could just get a clean brayer, but it's much better to wait for that to dry. So you can watch me doing a bit of cleaning. You can, if you feel like it, have a piece of paper to one side, and each time you've used your brayer, you could just get the paint off by rolling it over like that. I don't throw the wet wipes away that have paint on them, or dye, or anything else that we do here in the studio. I keep them and then I stitch into them, and I may do another video at some point showing you how you can use them. So they all go in a basket over there. Just dry that off. So a bit of blue. I'm just going to go straight over the top of this. You don't need a lot of colour. I'm not pressing, very gently going over it. And then I'm going to get my paper and lay it on. Clean brayer, straight over. I am pressing because I want it to lift what's underneath as well as what's on top. And I have to warn you now that if you don't get the quantities of paint right, this doesn't work. So it is trial and error. It is all about understanding the paints that you're using. But you can always check to see if you have got your design. And there you go. Okay, now you can do loads and loads of layers. You can keep going with layer after layer after layer. It does not have to be just the two. And I'm going to show you, just wipe those few bits off. Once you've wiped it, just use an old piece of paper just to dry it off. And that makes sure you've got everything off then. Okay, so now, just for this last little bit of layering I'm going to show you, I'm going to use this, which has some writing on it, and wherever I've put it, the embossing folder, which I seem to have buried under some stuff. Oh, there it is. Okay, so layer number 1. Bit more blue, I think, just in some places. Okay, so this is the embossing folder, and I'm just going to press that in the corner there. Then I'm going to press a piece of bubble wrap into there, and then the rest of it going to be the middle bit of that. Just pressed in. Okay, leave it to dry. Find something else to waft it with. Then I'm going to use a contrast of pink. The brayer. And that should be dry enough. Not quite. I'll give it a bit more of a waft. It should be dry to touch, not overnight dry. Okay, I think that should be all right now. We'll soon find out. Going over with the pink. Not pressing hard, just gently. And then with my fabric, smooth it out from the middle, go over with your brayer. You should start to see some colours coming through your fabric. Sometimes with the fabric it takes just a little bit longer. Than when you're doing it on paper. And also, depending on what fabric you've used, This is 100% cotton. It's my favourite fabric to use. I use it for all sorts of things. I never wash it, never pre-wash it to take the size out of it at all. Always just use it straight as it comes. I do iron it sometimes, but not always. All depends what I want to achieve. Take a peek. And there you have it. Instant patterning with different layers, different colours. And the reason I've got a line down the middle is because that's where the fabric was folded and I didn't iron it. See? I hope you've enjoyed this little video. And I hope it's inspired you to move on and do other things. And remember, if it can be done on fabric, it can be done on paper. And if it can be done on paper, it can be done on fabric. So you're not restricted. And if you're using papers that have got some sort of pattern on, that's fine. If you're using papers that are already embossed, that's fine. If you're using card or papers that have got other things on, then that's okay as well. So I'm just cleaning off my Gelli Plate, and I thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.